available to all of you later on as well. Shrishti will share the link with all the parents and students who participated. Point number 2 is the biggest blunder of your high school career is going to be made in the next 6 months. Okay. Now that's a pretty strong statement, because when it comes to students applying to colleges abroad, I would say SAT and ACT are one of the most important data points. However, attitude towards testing is very callous. I'll do it later. We hear that so much. Or I'll take it. There are so many attempts. I'll take the next attempt. Or my friend is doing this test. I'll also do the same test. I've heard so many excuses. And students really make a blunder, and they are lost because of all this. And expectation is here, but reality of scores is here. Now, for those of you who are going to the US, this is one of the most important data points in your application. For those of you not going to the US, primarily are looking at other countries, I can tell you this is a very important booster for your application. So my sincere request to everybody is, please take this very seriously. Okay, outside of your school, GPA and curve, SAT, ACT are taken with the highest of seriousness inside college admission offices. We hear a lot about colleges going test optional. And I'm recording it. I'm going on record as saying this. This is a marketing gimmick. Okay. As a college, I'm interested in more number of applications and selecting lesser number of students. And what does that do? That decreases my acceptance rate. And therefore, inversely related to that, increases my college ranking. Now, whether I believe and subscribe to that philosophy or not, I'm still doing it because my competitor is doing it. So the moment Harvard said we have gone test optional, there was a complete domino effect in higher education, with every single college standing up and within 45 days of Harvard decision saying, we are also now test optional. So the reality is they have gone test optional to boost their top line, the number of applications that they receive. And reality is that there is a stronger correlation between who they accept and the chance of that person having performed strongly on a standardized testing. Now, I apologize, Abhinav sir, if I'm walking into your territory. You're going to address something like this, but I have to put my opinion forward because these are all parents I'm talking to very frequently.
It's more important, sir. Your opinion on the desirability of the test, I think, is far more important than mine.
So, because many of you will hear mixed reactions to this. School counselors, friends, seniors, oh, my friend got into such and such college, he or she had never taken the SAT. Agreed. They are the minority. Majority, you will see a strong correlation between getting into highly selective colleges and the student having a strong test score. So my attitude towards SAT and ACT at the moment is, please take it. Please take it with the utmost seriousness. Do not faff around. Don't take it as a joke. Prepare extensively. When you are ready, you've practiced, you have consistently performed in practice tests, register, go take the test. Go in a good mood, score well. Don't take it too many times. I'm trying to summarize everything, my experience in here, okay? And use it as a golden nugget in your application to show, hey, take me, I got a good score. So suppose two possibilities. You do all this and you got a great score. That's a +1 on your application. It's a green flag. Suppose you do all this and we are not happy with your score. I'm not happy. You're not happy. your test prep tutor, Abhinav sir, is not happy, then we have to take a decision. Is it going to harm your application reporting this score? I think so. It will make you less competitive. At that time, we will subscribe to the, oh, you are test optional, you didn't need it philosophy. But you're not putting your best foot forward. Your best foot forward is with all the strong data points, strong school performance, strong test scores, strong profile, phenomenal essays, good recommendation letters, strong portfolio, good performance in the interview. Those are the classic data points needed for college admissions. Many colleges recalculate your academic standing, taking into consideration your test scores, your school performance, and you won't even get shortlisted to be read if those are not in the right place. So please take it seriously and don't fall prey to the gossip mongers of test optional, test optional. The second thing after that I want to say is figure out early if you are an SAT kid or an ACT kid. Umpteen number of times I witness every year, oh, I prepared for SAT, I went and gave it, didn't do well, something's wrong with me in this test. I think I'm going to switch over to the dark side. I think I'll do the ACT now. Right? So, no. Focus, figure out which is the right test and get behind, laser focus on that test. Should you do both tests? I get asked that question sometimes by high performing kids. Yes. Once you've fixed one, once you've done one and you have time, go and take another one. That can be your second golden nugget. 2 gold stars on your shoulder. Nobody can argue with that, but not at the expense of other things in your application. So figure out early, are you an SAT kid or an ACT kid? We can have a chat about this based on your talent testing with me. You can do a diagnostic with Abhinav sir, which I think he will talk about momentarily, and figure this out early. Find your comfort, find your test, get behind it. Point number 3, why are we doing this workshop in March? Why not 6 months from now? Why not 12 months from now? Why not 18 months from now? Because you have so many options in which to take the SAT. It keeps getting cancelled anyways in so many cities around the world. My best performing students, the ones where I felt very satisfied having gone through the entire journey, were the ones who managed to take it in early 11 and nail it. Okay, I'm talking about previous years. So that's why the October date comes to my mind. I know SAT has introduced more dates, and I think they will continue to introduce in the future also. Diwali of grade 11. I was sitting in and talking to a student. Yeah, done, sir. I got this 1550, 1580 something. Perfect. You're in a very good position, because you're going to capitalize and build on top of that. We can start talking about which college early. So I see 2 sets of kids. One that, and this is a minority, and they crack it in early 11, right? Before Diwali, before Christmas, they've cracked it perfect. I think they are on the best trajectory to college admissions. And the second type of kid I see is the one who attempts early grade 11, but then is not ready, is struggling with multitasking, school, testing, profile, 20,000 other things, and then manages to take it somewhere by maybe March of grade 11, summer end of grade 11, worst case scenario, October, just before they submit their application. There is a third subset, which is the kid that joins me very late and figured out that they want to go to college abroad very late, and they take it in October, November, December, like just in the nick of time, but that's a minority and an exception. You've got to figure out which one you are, okay? If you're the first kind, nail it before Christmas and Diwali, okay? And don't look behind. If you realize you're the second kind, okay, don't go very aggressive very early. Don't burn out. Don't run out of fuel early, okay? It's okay. Because what matters is how your application looks when we submit it in October of next year. Okay, I'm talking from your perspective, grade 10 students. So are you type A or type B? I'm okay with either as long as in the end you get the result. Okay. I think Abhinav sir will also talk a little bit about this. So those are the three very important messages from me. Number one, don't think test optional, and anything optional anyways is mandatory for me. Number two, SAT or ACT, figure out who you are. Number three, are you the early kid or are you the regular kid? The early kid definitely is more advantaged in the process. Try to be, but if you're struggling, deal with the reality and move into phase B. And I think Abhinav sir will talk about how you can transition to doing it later. Now, it's a great honor and privilege to have Mr. Abhinav Garg. He's the founder of SAT and Paper, one of the leading test prep organizations in the country today.
Thank you,
And
sir.
we have been working together for a good 5-6 years now. He came highly recommended to me from other school counselors, and I have thoroughly enjoyed working with him. He's now my go-to guy, right? I think some of you are already working with. This January, we conducted a month-long online free SAT and ACT test prep experience for students from around India. Around 2,000 students joined us. That was a wonderful thing that Abhinav sir and I did this year. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Why I respect and admire Abhinav sir? सर थोड़ा खुश हो जाइए आप.
सर मैं बहुत खुश हूँ. मैं थोड़ा तैयारी कर रहा हूँ बोलने का, तो that's keeping me occupied.
Number one, he's a thorough gentleman and a thorough professional. So it's great to be in the company of people you respect, and he is one such person. Number two, he's got the grip on the subject. So any question, I don't think I can remember a time when I asked him a question about testing and he did not give me a satisfying response. And number three, it's experience. It's the feedback that I have received from previous year's parents and the results that he has managed to generate in the last few years of us working together. All of those make me want to take my hat off to him and pass the mic to him. And all yours, sir. I think we are all
so much, sir.
really waiting.
So honestly, I mean, listening to you over the past few minutes, right, it tells me that you have got a phenomenal grip over the art of testing now. So some of these, were rare gems, which I would not come across many people who would understand it that deeply. Especially, in terms of pacing your prep over a period of time, depending upon what your current capability and what your aspiration is. Right, so starting off, this is going to be a long session. I think I'll take anywhere from 60 to 75 minutes, but promise everyone that you'll be reasonably enriched today. My first sincere, humble request to everyone is to keep the videos on. As Neeraj sir told you, this was supposed to be a webinar, but I wanted it to be more interactive. I wanted to give all of you, the privilege to interrupt me middle of the session and ask as many questions as you can. So all I can tell you is I'll only be taking questions from people who have got their videos on. So anybody with the video off is no interaction on this session. You can still listen to me. That's completely okay. Okay. I still can't see much of a difference. No worries. So let's go ahead. So a couple of things we need to understand. The first fact is, so many people ask me, why do we have two tests here, not one? For example, we are all pretty much used to a single test system. For example, GMAT is a single test, GRE is a single test. Back home, the IIT-JEE is a single test. You never heard about two parallel tests that you could get and do to get into the IITs. No, for medical, it's a single test. Then why do we have two tests for admissions to US colleges, right? Answer is very simple. It has to do with the US laws. So as per the US laws, any product or service which has more than a critical number of users cannot be allowed to exist as a monopoly, right? So originally it was the College Board and the test called the SAT, and later on the ACT was introduced just to ensure that the College Board has got some competition. Uh, Through the session today, I'm going to blast lots of myths about these two tests, things you would have heard about. That if you are doing a STEM program, you must do the ACT because that has a science section on it. Completely untrue. Uh, I'm not good with my science, so I should not be looking at the ACT. Completely untrue. That's not true. You'll have to understand the two tests in great detail. So I'll tell you how I'm going to structure the session today. I'm going to be talking at length about the two tests, what they are, what makes them, what is it that a good preparation would constitute, when to start, how to take the prep forward, what is it that you can do on the side, apart from, probably working with us to ensure that you score well on these tests, how these tests are very different from your regular school education. There's so many parents who will come to me, oh, my son scored a 95 on his CBSE math, ICSE math. Why is he struggling with his SAT math? Because this is not CBSE or ICSE math. SAT math is SAT math. It's a different test that you have to understand. I'll try and throw some light on that also. We'll be, glad to take all questions from all of you towards the end. And then we'll also talk about the way forward as to how exactly we can help you. How I can see already a few faces and a few names here that have been in touch with me already. So for the rest of you, how we'll be conducting a diagnostic, how we're going to help you decide between the SAT and the ACT, and when to start prep, when to complete it, all those. And this is going to be an individual decision. So I would want at least 15 to 30 seconds, of individual interaction with everyone towards the end of the session today. That was the intended purpose here, I guess. So getting along. So first of all, we call the SAT and the ACT as standardized tests. Anyone could throw some light on what do I mean by a standardized test? Anyone may unmute and speak. What do you understand by a standardized test? And what is it in that it is intended to test? The College Board says that it intends to test your college readiness. Not many people would agree. They're basically aptitude tests, right? So in technical terms, if I talk about aptitude, does not measure your ability to learn, but it has a high correlation with ability to learn. So it's usually found that people who are high on aptitude would also be high on their learning quotient. That is one of the reasons why colleges attach so much of importance to this one particular test, right? Now, with a small introduction, let's just go straight into it and take a look at how the two tests are similar and how they're both different. The first major difference is that the SAT is a paper and pencil based test. So you got to go to a SAT center, which will typically be a school, and take this test, which is always conducted on a Saturday. The reporting time is 7:30 in the morning, which is fixed. And on a paper and pencil, you got to take this test, which is about 3 hours long, right? The ACT is also 3 hours long. The difference being that this is taken on a computer screen. So it is a digital test. You cannot take it at home. You still have to travel to a center and take this test over there. But the mode of instruction, the interface now is going to be a computer screen. How does that make a difference? I don't think that makes any difference whatsoever. Also, this generation of test takers, I think, is very comfortable with both media. So there's no problem there. Right. Going into the finer details, each of these tests has 4 options, plus ACT has an optional essay. SAT used to have an optional essay, which has now been scrapped, which has been removed. So they'll not have it now ever here onwards. And chances are that ACT also in the next month, 2 months, 3 months is going to do away with the essay. So I'm not going to be talking about that, right? Primarily, these are both tests of some basic math and some basic English. Apart from that, ACT also has a science section. How it is not science, I'll talk about that, right? So one trivia about this test. And SAT is an extremely tiring experience. Trust me, it's far more tiring than what your school exams are. So to partially compensate the students to overcome this sense of tiredness, this is one of the rare tests in the world where the students are permitted to eat during the exam. No other test permits you to do that. So on the SAT, we have a break. We have a 10-minute break where students are permitted to move out, open their bags, pull out the eatables, and they can start gobbling. And which is important also, I would say, because the test actually needs a lot of energy, right? Now, first step before we take any decision, about whether I want to go the SAT route or the ACT route, we need to understand the two tests in totality, and we need to understand the two tests thoroughly. uh, I've seen more incorrect decisions, more wasted cases arising out of a decision that was not an informed choice. So more often than not, it is just hearsay. Oh, my friends, I still hear that very often. My friends are taking the SAT, so I'll take the SAT. I'm a STEM student, so I must take the ACT. Completely incorrect. I'm an IB student, and I've been told that IB students are better suited for the SAT. Not true at all, right? Neeraj sir would obviously share with you that both these tests are completely interchangeable, right? So I see whenever I do a demo class and I suggest, an ACT to the most informed of parents, the first question is it equivalent? There must be some colleges that prefer an SAT to the ACT. Now, I'm a little bewildered, by such questions coming at me through such good students, such informed students. Tell me, boys and girls, you are in the information age. Why do you need someone like me to answer that question? How long would it take you to figure out? 5 minutes maximum. Do some Googling. I'm a sophomore aspiring to take the SAT or the ACT next year. Would any of them give me better chances? And you'll find 1 million matches on Google, right? So stay away from this entire myth factory, please, right? Let's go and understand the two tests in great detail, and then I'll give you how we are going to go about choosing one of them. And we'll do it in a very, very scientific manner. What I do not want is that you select one of them right now, take 2 attempts, waste an entire year, and then come back to me asking, oh, was I better meant for the other one? As Neeraj has said, the other one happens only when you've maxed out the first one. And that is as an additional, that's like a feather in your cap. I've done very well on one of them, and now I also want to show my prowess on the other one. Okay, so here we go. I'll be using a little whiteboard here. I've never, used to preparing PPTs or slides. I'm always, being a typical master, I'm more comfortable writing on a whiteboard. It just serves me better and gives me some leeway also, some flexibility also. So the first thing that we're going to understand is the SAT as a test. Okay, I trust everybody can see my whiteboard. Yeah. So the SAT has 4 sections, which will always appear in a specific order. You do not have the choice to attempt them in your preference. So section 1 here is always going to be, sorry, my pen smudged, I'll write again. Section 1 here would always be reading. Section 2 again is going to be writing skills. You don't have to write anything. This is all multiple choice type. All of SAT, they're all multiple choice type questions. There might be some variations which we'll discuss about. Section 3 here is Math 1. Math 1, when I say, you cannot use a calculator here. And section 4 here is Math 2, which is calculator permitted. The first thing, both the SAT and the ACT, they permit you all to use the most advanced graphing calculator, right? If you are from an IB curriculum, you would be exposed to this calculator sooner than later. But if you're doing CBSE or you're doing ISC, I'll very strongly recommend you should get this calculator and learn how to use it. Of course, we'll teach you how to use it inside our classes, right? The recommended models here, if your school has recommended a model, go for that. Otherwise, you can take down this one. a Casio FX-CG50. This is easily available on Amazon, also available on most of the big stationery shops around you. But this is one of the tools that you're going to need for this preparation, right? Also, I tell you, this calculator beginning May would go out of stock at most places in India because of the huge demand that IB schools generate, right? So it's better to secure a copy for you up early. Coming back to my SAT discussion. So section 1, reading, you have got 52 questions precisely to be answered in a space of 65 minutes. Further, these 52 questions are divided into 5 passages. Each of these passages might have 10 to 11 questions. I'm not going into great details as of now. And this would test you for your ability to comprehend, ability to infer. The questions on the reading section can be fairly complicated. This is perceived to be a tough section on the SAT. Some of them would be old English passages, stuff that was written in 17th and 18th century. Some of them would relate to history, especially the US history. So it will make excellent sense for you to equip yourselves with a basic course in US history. Writing skills. This is basically covers, 2 major areas, 3 in fact. Grammar, a lot of it, punctuation, and the third thing is rhetoric. Rhetoric is, precision, concision, how sentences are ordered and all those things. To begin with, all students are going to struggle with this section. Why? Because none of the students, be it curricula, be it IB, be it IGCSE, CBSE, ICSE, whatever, the schools have practically stopped teaching grammar and punctuation. And this test is going to test you for nuances of grammar and punctuation. It is going to take you some time to master this one. Then math on the SAT is fairly simple. Writing skills is 44 questions in 35 minutes, right? Whereas most of you would struggle with time on the reading section, on the writing section, time would usually not be a challenge. So most of the students may not be initially, but midway through the prep, they'll be able to manage their time out. And this is further 44 questions are divided into 4 passages. On each of the passages, you've got 11 questions each. Then we have math non-calculator. No calculator permitted, 20 questions to be done inside of 25 minutes. Right, so of these 20 questions, 15 are proper MCQs and 5 questions are grid-in questions where you just have to supply the answer. You don't have to show a detailed working of how you reach that answer, but you have to come up with a numerical answer. And then math 2 non-calculator, the perceived tougher of the math sections, 38 questions to be done in 55 minutes. So that's how my test is, exactly 180 minutes or 3 hours, excluding the breaks, right? Now about the breaks, there are 2 breaks on this test. Between the first and the second section, there's a 10-minute break. And between the third and the fourth section, there's a 5-minute break. On the first break, you're permitted to move out of the hall, operate your bag, eat, drink, talk to your batchmates, anything. On the second break, though, that's a 5-minute break, but you're not permitted to leave your seat. You have to stay right on your seat. Fair enough? So this is what my SAT broadly looks like. Challenges on the SAT, mostly reading, right? So this could actually be the inferential nature of the questions that could stump you. More often than not, you'll be able to, of the given 4 options, you'll be able to zero in on 2 and the remaining 2 would be extremely confusing. Okay. Next, I talk about the ACT, and let me write down here. The ACT also has 4 sections. So section 1 here, we call it as English. That's 75 questions to be done inside of 45 minutes. That sounds a lot. right? Section 2 is math. 60 questions to be done in 60 minutes. There's one more difference on the ACT math section. Whereas the entire ACT is 4 options per question. The entire ACT also is 4 options per question, except for ACT math, which is 5 options per question. Although if you ask me on math, that doesn't make a difference, right? Whether 4 options or 5 options, you're going to be calculating the answer in most cases. After this, we have a good 10-minute break that usually extends to 15 minutes at most places. And then you go back to business. Section 3 here is called as reading. And you got to do 40 questions in 35 minutes. And section 4 is science. That's also 40 questions in 35 minutes. Thereafter, you have the optional essay, which I'll not be discussing about because we presume now that that will be removed from the test any day whatsoever, right? So if we look at the ACT, this is 175 minutes, excluding the break. So that's 5 minutes shorter than the SAT. So this is what my basic test structure looks like, right? The second thing that we have to understand is the difference between the 2 tests, how the 2 of them differ, and what exactly one needs to understand, how we need to build that into our decision making. And then a little later, I'll talk to you about how do we go about selecting the right test for you, what is the correct way to go about it, right? Okay, here we go. So let me start discussion with the ACT science because we don't have this section on the ACT, right? So one thing which I want all students to understand, remember, and absorb once and for all is that ACT science is not a test of science, right? Just as we always used to say that the SAT essay is not an essay, it's a commentary. ACT essay is not an essay, it's a critique, right? ACT science is not science. ACT science, truly speaking, is a test on data comprehension, right? Just as reading comprehension, I'm given passages which I have to read, understand, and answer questions. ACT science, I'm given data sets which I have to read, comprehend, and come up with an answer. So truly speaking, this test is data comprehension. That is how it should have been named. I do not know why ACT named it as science. But the other fact that is also true is that this test is going to be set in an environment of science. So your data sets would be picked up from areas of science, typically laboratory studies or some researches or something like that. There is no higher level knowledge of science that you need to crack these tests, but you should have a basic understanding of science. So what I put as a cutoff is that in order to qualify for taking the ACT, you should have done all 3 sciences until grade 10. Whether you plan to take them in grade 11 or not, it does not matter, right? If you have missing sciences in grade 10, because IGCSE, ICSE, both these curricula, they permit students to drop sciences as early as grade 9, right? If your missing science is a physics, you may still go on and consider the ACT. But if your missing science is a chemistry or a biology, please do not look at the ACT. So that's where we start making our decisions now. Anybody, if you have not studied both chemistry and biology in grade 9 and grade 10, again, I repeat, whether you'll be studying them in grade 11 or not, does not make a bit of a difference, right? So if a missing biology, a missing chemistry in grade 9, grade 10, drop the ACT there and then. Do not listen to anyone, what people have to say. Again, I've seen test prep people recommending ACT to students who have not studied any sciences beyond grade 8. And I find this to be absolutely atrocious. I don't know on what, and again, if you do some research, you'll be able to zero in on the same parameters yourselves, right? So no chemistry, no biology in grade 9, 10 means no ACT period. And stop looking at the ACT further, just say that SAT is the test for me, I'll be taking this one, right? Okay, moving on. I come back here. Now, let's start with what is similar on the two tests. The writing section on the SAT and the English section on the ACT, they're kind of identical. They're 90% same, except for the fact that the writing section on the SAT might be 10% harder than the English section on the ACT. It's the same. Grammar, punctuation, rhetoric is what they would quiz you on. Of course, on the SAT, you have slightly higher amount of time. You see, the fundamental difference now, if we introduce this here between the SAT and the ACT, is that the SAT is a test of logic and comprehension. It's a smart test, right? The ACT is only a test of speed. Trust me, it's a dumb test. But even it is dumb, it will take you to the best possible colleges. It's a far more reliable test than the SAT, which might be complicated, which might have undercurrents. ACT would never have undercurrents. It's the same test always, right? Also, please know that the average time per question on the ACT is 49 seconds. So if I divide the total number of questions divided by the total number of time, I'll get 49 seconds is what I get to attempt each question. This figure for the SAT is 70 seconds per question, which means the SAT offers you almost 40% extra time as compared to ACT. But that does not mean that everybody should go and pick up the SAT. If the SAT is offering you 40% extra time, it's in lieu of something. I mean, the trade-off is the questions here are harder. They'll force you to think twice before you arrive at an answer. There are going to be more traps on the SAT. ACT would never have traps, right? So we discussed science and we discussed writing. So science is not there on the SAT, no comparison, writing and English, identical sections. Now we come down to the more tricky part. So let's compare math to begin with. Math. I think I'll need one more slide to compare math. So I'll come back to this one. So let me just write down here SAT, ACT, right? The first major difference is SAT has two math sections, right? ACT has only one math section. On SAT, one of the sections has calculator permitted. On the other one doesn't have calculator permitted. The ACT has only one math section and the calculator is permitted throughout the math section. So those students, who have developed an early dependence on the calculator, right? So we work with quite a few kids from the US, honestly, and then they've been accustomed to using the graphing calculator right from grade 7, maybe grade 8 at times. But the byproduct is if you tell them to multiply 21 by 4, they'll immediately, look for their calculator. That's what I need to do it. So two math sections versus one. This is one major difference. The second major difference here is that the SAT has a limited syllabus. It's a very small syllabus. Just 4 units. If I talk about the expanse of the SAT math, I think it would be about some 15% of what you need to study for your grade 11. It's that small. The ACT has a huge syllabus and kind of undefined. Let me tell you, if anybody has done IGCSE Add Math in grade 10, that's going to be a huge advantage on the ACT math. Not on the SAT math. SAT math is, if I just share a joke with you here, I'll come back to the screen. So normally towards the end of my program, I do a group session with my students. right? And when they're struggling with one section or the other. So I tell them SAT has 4 sections. Section 1 is a test of reading in reading. Section 2 is a test of reading in writing. Section 3 is a test of reading in math without a calculator. And section 4 is a test of reading in math with a calculator. SAT would always test you for reading. So by the time you complete the prep, you'll say, oh, I knew everything, but I still got 4 questions incorrect because I did not read them properly. But they're designed that way. It's a slightly complicated test. ACT, if you know the concept, you'll always get the answer right. It'll never trick you. So it's a huge syllabus versus a very, very limited syllabus. Also, the math here is more curricular. So it is going to align more closely with what you're likely to study in grade 11 for your math. Or if you've taken the ACT AD math, but more dependable. ACT math would take far more effort than what SAT math would take, but it is more dependable any day. Right? So that's the difference between, the math sections. Of course, time is a different. Another difference is that on the SAT, there are 4 options to each question. On the SAT math section, there are 5 options to each question, although in my opinion, that doesn't really make any difference, right? Okay, moving on. And we go back to our screen now, where we're comparing. So we're done with math on both the sides. Again, one word of advice here. Anyone who is not planning to take math in grade 11, and who are the ones who are not planning to take math in grade 11 are generally students who are shy of math, right? Should not opt for the ACT. If you're planning to drop math at the end of grade 10, pick up the SAT. That will make more sense for you. Don't look at the ACT route. Math is going to be a perpetual struggle here. Coming down to reading, which I think is the area in which the two of them are vastly different. And this is what should become the basis, the primary basis of your choice. So 40 questions in 35 minutes. 52 questions in 65 minutes. You're very comfortable for time on the SAT reading, but you are extremely pressed for time on the ACT reading. This is going to be 4 passages, each of them having 10 questions, right? The nature of questions here is going to be very, very different. The ACT reading passages or the questions would be very simple to what you guys have been doing in your grade 10 reading comprehension. A passage is given, and that passage, you get some direct questions to be answered, no problem at all. You're only running against time. That's the only challenge on this test. But at the same time, let me tell you, of the 8 sections that we have talked about here, the score that is going to be the most difficult to improve is your ACT reading score. Very simple reason. This score is only and only a function of your reading speed. Reading speed is something which you have developed over the last 4 to 5 years based on the kind of general reading that you've been doing. Assuming that that speed will go up substantially in the short run is not true, right? So this is something that we'll have to build in. Again, we build that into our advice when we tell you how to choose between the 2 tests. SAT reading, you have more time, but they're going to be complicated questions. They're going to be pretty complicated questions. I cannot talk much further than that. I can only give you an example, one simple example. So if I was doing a reading section on the ACT, my passage starts reading. Mahatma Gandhi was born on 2nd October 1869 in Porbandar in Gujarat. For his high school, he went to this school, and then he went to UK for his higher studies, and then he graduated and went to South Africa, where he started the Satyagraha and blah, blah, blah. So ACT, you have the same passage. Question number 1 says, where was Mahatma Gandhi born? Go up, oh wow, Porbandar, Gujarat, you take it. Passage 2, question 2 says, when was Mahatma Gandhi born? No, October 2, 1869. Where did he go for his studies? Oh, wow, UK, take it. The same passage you put into the SAT, the same passage, the questions will change. The question number 1 now is going to be, why was Mahatma Gandhi born? Which means that you read through the entire passage, you align yourselves with the author, you get a gist of it, you apply your own thoughts. What, in your opinion, was the precipitating factor that forced Mahatma Gandhi to return to India? Again, the answer to this question you may never find on the passage, right? So that is what gives the SAT reading its characteristic flavor, right? But again, if you ask me which of these preps is more enjoyable, the SAT is a more enjoyable prep. But my question is, what are you looking at? You're looking at enjoyment or you're looking at a score? If you wanted enjoyment, there's so many options available. You know, watch a Varun Dhawan flick. Very entertaining. No problem at all. Right? So you want score, if you are equally disposed of, prefer the ACT, especially at the higher scores. Right? So now we come down and we sum it up. We sum it up as to how are we going to decide. So you apply, before that, yes, one more thing. I'm sorry I missed out. The scoring on the 2 tests. Okay, here we go. The SAT, yes, one more difference. I'm so sorry, what's happening to me today? Yeah, one more difference here. On SAT, the math section is 50% of total score. Whereas on the ACT, it is only 25% of total score. If I'm brilliant with my math, that gives me one more reason to opt for the SAT, because math takes care of half of it. But I get saddled with a super difficult reading. So it's a tough choice, it's a tough call. We'll help you take it, no worries. Okay. The SAT is scored out of 1600. Now, this is a score range. Please know that it starts from 400. So a blank sheet on the SAT gets a 400 and not a 0. Right? So this is 400 to 1600. How does it happen? The math section contributes 800. And both the reading and writing that constitute the English sections for me, they contribute 400 each. And my score on the 3 sections is totaled so as to give me my final score on 1600. Right? One more thing that you have to understand is that these are not scores. These are percentile ranks. These are percentile ranks, right? So it's very unfair to compare these scores to your school scores. I get parents, oh, my son scored 95% in CBSE grade 10, but he's got only an 80% on SAT. 80% on SAT means nothing. 80% on SAT would be a 1320, but this is not a percentage. This is a percentile rank. And each rank can be given to only as many students and no more. For example, on the SAT, if you are doing a 1450, a 1450 corresponds to a 99 percentile. Any of the students here can throw some light on what do I mean by that? Boys, anyone could tell me?
You're better than 99% of the test takers.
Absolutely right. 99% of the students who took this test are scored, are placed below you, which means only 1% of the students who take this test are going to score a 1450 or higher. Right? Similarly, some 12 60, I think, corresponds to the 80th percentile. For my CBSE, we never calculate percentiles. So no, not 1260, 1260 the 90th percentile, I'm sorry. If you search, do a bit of Googling, you'll find these sheets ready-made. On the ACT, each of the sections is scaled on a scale of 36. And then we take a simple average to arrive at your composite score. So the ACT is scored on 36, right? Yes, if you get a 32.5, for example, then that will be reported as a 33. But if you get a 32.25, that will be rounded back to a 32, right? So it's a simpler process. You just have to take an average. On the SAT, you simply have to add. Also, the College Board and the ACT, they jointly publish a concordance table that can be used to convert one of these two scores into the other effortlessly, no problem. So the two scores are completely interconvertible. This is easily available. We can share with you. We normally share with you after we have done both the diagnostics, right? So summing it up now, how do I decide which one do I take? So the first level of shortlisting is a profile-based shortlisting. You eliminate the ACT. If you have not done what sciences, if any of a chemistry or a biology is missing in grade 9 and grade 10, drop the ACT, it is the SAT for you. If you're not planning to study math in grade 11 and 12, and even if you're doing a IB, AI, math, SL, I'm okay with that. But if you say I'll not be studying math at all in grade 11, please, for God's sake, don't even think in terms of the ACT. Third major difference. SAT is a more tutorable test. ACT belongs to the self-driven student. This is for parents. So if you think that your child needs a lot of push with everything, is not self-motivated enough, please do not look at the SAT. SAT is the one which is more tutor supported. So if I talk about the tutor's role obviously is higher on the SAT. That is one reason why I find a lot of tutors recommending the ACT where it should not have been considered in the first place. It's an easier job to train for the ACT as compared to training for the SAT, which requires greater expertise, also greater involvement as well. All right, so that's said and done. If after this 3 checks applied, you're still eligible to take the ACT and SAT both, then what you do? You write to us. And what we do? We conduct 2 diagnostic tests for you, which is something we always do. Whenever we sign on a student, it is mandatory for you to take a diagnostic test. Even if you have ruled out the SAT, still do a diagnostic test with us for the SAT alone, right? So we'll make you do 2 full 3-hour tests, one for the SAT, one for the ACT, and then we'll schedule a short call with all of you to discuss your test choices, which one you should take. In that call, we'll do nothing. We'll see if on any of these scores, you have a typically 2-point or higher advantage. And we'll share the concordance table with you. For example, I'm doing 1300 on the SAT and 1220 on the ACT equivalent. Drop the ACT, go with the SAT, right? But, and this is 60 points is what we call as a 2-point difference. 60 point SAT, 2 points ACT. If your difference is 1 point or less, then you got to take a look at the sectional breakup in the 2 cases. And which is the section that will accord the most importance to? Anyone? Can someone answer me? When you're looking at the sectional breakup of the 2 tests, which is that sectional score that you'll put under a magnifying glass? Ansh.
Reading 1?
Yes, absolutely right. Reading 1. With a higher than usual reading scores on the ACT, prefer the ACT. If the reading ACT is lower than usual, lower than your averages, prefer the SAT. Don't worry, we'll be able to help you do it. Right? Anybody has any questions at this stage before I move further? Okay, no questions. The next important question, when do we start? Earlier you start, the better it is. But you have to take into consideration where your school exams are placed, right? And if you're doing the, and this time around, I mean, it's not about if you're doing the, so all the school exams are placed in May. So whether you're IB, MYP, your IGCSE, your CBSE, ICSE, whatever, everything is in May. You may choose to start immediately after school exams end, or you may choose to start now, work for a month, and then take a break. That choice is completely up to you. Depends upon how prepared you feel for your board exam. So I have two sets of students. One of them telling me, no, the board's coming, we're completely focused. Second of them telling me, sir, the school has over prepared us for the boards already. I've taken so many prelims, so many mocks, and I don't know what else to do with those books. That's completely up to you. So you may start now, you may start after your boards. We're completely okay with any of these. But in terms of admitting you, we'll follow the standard process, right? So we'll do a diagnostic test to begin with, and then we'll do a kind of an interaction with you in shorter groups where we'll give you all the program details as to how this is going to be structured. But in general, it takes something like 4 to 6 months. So for your first attempt at the SAT or the ACT, I would prefer a time of 4 to 6 months with me, a minimum of 4 months and a maximum of 6 months, which means if we are starting in June, we can target either October or we can target December. Now, which of these we target would depend upon where we are starting from, right? As Neeraj sir said, you know, the early starters, early achievers versus the regular achievers. Even if you're a regular achiever, you're not doing too well on the test, I always recommend you should take your one attempt early, not later than December of 2021, and then push the next one to August of next year. No problem. Give yourself sufficient time, right? Of course, I mean, because we are a one-on-one prep, we custom create this for everyone. I'll be telling you about our courses towards the end. This is the start time. Yes, sir, please come in.
We have to explain effort versus time curve, sir.
We will. I'll definitely come to that, sir. So now, so starting in June, you might target October, you might target December. A lot of you might have questions to ask me, sir. October is going to be my half yearlies. How do I take the test? I say it does not matter. The fundamental difference between your school exams and your SAT is the nature of this test. The school exams are all content-driven tests, right? Easy to learn, easy to forget. Correct? Easy to learn, easy to forget. For example, how many of you would remember what you did in grade 8? No, none. SAT, the skill-based tests, application-based tests, they have that small a content. You know, I was sitting with one of my students who was due to take the test in May. I said, how long will it take you to sit down and revise your entire syllabus for SAT math? You know what the answer was? Sir, 90 minutes. It's that small. It's about application. So it's a skill. There's nothing that you're going to forget here. Right? So I don't want you to study closer to the test. I'll talk about that right now. But if I wanted to give you an example of what is the difference between knowledge and skill, school prepares you for knowledge. It doesn't prepare you for skill. The SAT or ACT is a skill. So reading from the book is a skill, right? Reading from the book is a skill. You get a book from the market today, and that book says, the great wars of 19th century Europe. And you bring that book home. And you go through that once, go through that twice, thrice, 4 times. You become expert. You become PhD in that book. Correct? Mm-hmm. Then you lock that book in an almirah and forget it for the next 5 years. 5 years later, when you take it out, how much of it do you remember? Anyone? None. It's all washed off. Okay. Let's compare it to skill. Skill can be learned. And there are books available on all skills. So I go to the market today and buy for myself a book, How to Swim Better and Faster. And I read that book once, twice, thrice, 4 times. Do you think I can master swimming? Yes, Manak. Will I become an expert swimmer? Reading from a book?
No.
No. What do I have to do? Of course, the book helps me.
You need to
I have to go out there and swim. And swim and swim and swim and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and swim better and swim faster. Right? So I did this for about 6 months and I became an expert swimmer. All right. Then I did not swim for the next 4 years. What happens now? Do I forget this swimming or does this stay with me? Anyone?
It stays.
It stays. After 4 years, when I get into a swimming pool, it might take me half an hour to get into my elements. But after that half an hour, I'm going to be the swimmer that I was. Correct. Until and unless you realize this fundamental difference between the two tests is going to be very, very difficult for you. Right? And there lies the question why 95% on CBSE math does not translate into a superlative score on the SAT. It's a different test. You got to realize that difference. The other greatest difference that you have to understand is the effort time curve and how it is different for the two tests. So I'll tell you, what is it that we are used to? This is effort and this is time. This is an extremely familiar curve that all of you use for your school exams, right? So if Ansh was going to be taking an exam in September this year, he'll be least bothered about this one right now. Correct? But as the exam starts drawing closer and closer and closer, the kind of effort that you give to it, it increases exponentially. 3 days before the test, no friends are going to come home, no phone calls, no WhatsApp, no laptop. I'm dug into my books and going over it again and again. Absolutely. And everyone, the students and parents, in complete sync. You apply this curve to your SAT, it's a guaranteed disaster. It's a guaranteed disaster. You know what? 1 day before the test, what is my standard instruction to students? You're prohibited from going anywhere near the books. And then parents called me, sir, is it true that you told them not to touch the books? They have test tomorrow. I said, yes, I did that. I don't want you to study a day before the test. In the entire week before the test, I want you to take just one mock paper, nothing more than that. The standardized test curve, effort curve that works here is this. जब तक आप लोग ये नहीं समझेंगे तब तक बात नहीं बनेगी. So in the initial days, the first 2 months of your prep, you have to operate here, learning concepts, giving it the maximum effort. If you treat this like a school exam, then you've missed the bus. Stage 2, finalizing your strategy. Working on quality inputs, working on streamlining your strategy, freezing your strategy, doing mock papers, analyzing those. And stage 3, the last 2 weeks, just maintain what you're doing. Don't look left, don't look right, and be very cheerful. Do not get obsessed with the idea of SAT. That's one mistake a lot of students make. Overemphasizing, getting obsessed with SAT. I've always told them that, you know, if you go into the SAT test and you open the booklet, and in that booklet you get to see the door to Howard University, trust me, that door is going to be shut always. Right? So this is a test which has to be taken on a very, very cheerful note. I always tell my students, you take it like a video game, Mario Brothers. You play it once, Mario mar gaya, koi baat nahi, control or delete, play it again, learn from what went wrong last time. Don't put it here, it gets onto your head. Pressure is the first thing that you'll all be combating on this test. And of course, we'll help you through and through as we take you through this particular prep. So that's how it gets. Start in June, target December, target October, depending upon what starting points are, what is the kind of prep required. Anybody has a question at this stage? Nothing at all? So I think
no questions, really?
No questions. That's what I'm asking. Somebody should have a question. Only two possibilities, sir. Either they're
I think you're explaining it very well. So we are all
that's a compliment.
taking it in. So it's okay. At least for me, I'm telling that.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Couple of things I want to add, sir.
Certainly. Please come in, sir.
See, I want to just add a little bit of color to the picture you're presenting from an admissions perspective. A high score in testing tells me you got high academic rigor, high academic ability, like Abhinav sir said, aptitude, right? You got the academic aptitude. You got a high score, it means you got stamina. You can sit in one place for 3 hours and non-stop shoot down problems one after the other. Very good. You got a high score. What does it mean? It means you don't make silly mistakes. You know, these are all things which are needed when you go to very high power environments, right? So when we hear things like the average SAT score at Harvard is 1550, etc., that's the kind of environment that is, right? They will come, they will present something to you, and they expect within 1-2 days you've read a book, you've read 15 papers. So because your processing ability is so high. So as all of you go through this entire journey of testing, you know, take it as a feedback as well. That am I cut out for that 1550? Yeah, I know I want it. I'm trying to get it. I'm working hard. But how naturally is it coming to me? You know? And if it's not, then come back and talk to me later about that as well. You know, all the kids in the room. Because what we don't want is to, you know, burn the midnight oil, go get that 1500, 1550. Wow, got into a great college, and then I get a phone call after 3 months. I'm burnt out. I'm ready to come home. Okay. So students and me, we need to continuously have that conversation that fine, we are making all the efforts, but what is just outside my comfort zone and what is way outside of my comfort zone? Okay. Remember that. Sir, back to you.
Thank you, sir. So just to share with all of you here one trivia. So my daughter scored a 1580 on her SAT on her first attempt, and she never applied to any of the IVs. That a lot of people might find extremely revolting. It was a complete personal choice for her that I did not interfere with. Neeraj sir, your comments.
No, I know the whole story.
Yeah.
So I think you continue.
Yeah, sure, sir. Okay. So, all right. So let's now come down to the course structure. So I'll talk about the SAT and then we'll talk about the SAT modifications. So for the SAT, what we need with each one of you is something like 25 to 35 hours. And I hope most of you know by now, so it's a one-on-one prep. So classes here are delivered to individuals and not to batches. So this is the bulk of the whole thing, which is delivered probably 2 to 3 times a week, less or more depending upon where we are starting with and where we are going to. Further, we need about 36 to 45 hours of invigilated mock tests. So one thing here, whenever you take a full mock, we'll always ensure that there's a remote proctor here on the screen as you solve those, right? They'll typically start about 2 months before the test date, maybe 2.5 months at times, depends. And they're done Saturday, Sunday morning, 9 to 12. That's a fixed time affair for all of you. Further, we have a provision for 15 to 20 hours of group classes. Now, these group classes are purely optional, are offered wherever the students need additional help Also, these are themed classes. So we have a large number of these, but not all of them would be offered to all the students. Say, for example, I've done one complete round of prep with you. And post that round of prep, I find that there's a set of 7-8 students who are struggling with their sense of time on math. So they'll be given a couple of workshops, which are about 2 hours each long, which only help them to improve upon their sense of timing. You know how to use a GDC graphing calculator very well. If you do not, we'll give you a group class that teaches you how to use a graphing calculator. I told you US history is going to be a challenge on the SAT. So those of you who are doing the SAT, we'll give them a 2-hour-long class that gives them the basics of US history and follow it with some reading material for each one of you. So that's how it goes. With each student, we have a 3-tutor team that works. Each of them are domain specialists in their area. So in our system, somebody who's teaching SAT reading would only teach SAT reading, would teach nothing else. Somebody doing SAT science would do only SAT science and nothing else. For the SAT, we'll be sending you all the study material that you need on a physical hard copy courier delivered to your doorstep. So all books, assignments, test papers delivered right to your doorsteps, and the courses, they come with an unlimited content supply, as much of it as you wish. There's a WhatsApp group created for each individual student. On this group, we'll have the 3 of your tutors, a dedicated prep manager, evaluator, and both parents have to be present on the group so that they are in the know of what's happening to the students' prep at all points in time. So every time the students are given a class, they're given an assignment to solve. They have to solve the assignment, click a picture of and put it on the WhatsApp group. We'll evaluate it, put it back on the group, and the next class we start with their doubts. One dirty condition for the students, parents may like it more. And this is self-explanatory. No assignment means no class. Simple, and we are quite digital about it. If you have not submitted your assignment from the previous class, the next class would not be delivered. That's a guarantee until and unless you submit the assignment. And we are quite digital about it. Come what might happen, right? So there's a prep manager, dedicated prep manager, who's entrusted with the task of securing your assignments on time. And if the classes happen without the assignments being submitted, then she's answerable. And I think this works pretty well for us because there is, and in so many cases where people work with other tutors, I find that one of the reasons for gaps to exist is that the classes were conducted without having any feedback on what the student is doing at his or her end. So extremely important. The most important part here, we follow a flexible schedule. And this schedule works to your advantage more often than not, which means we are not going to fix it like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. No. Schedules for each week are drawn ahead of the week. Your prep manager writes to you on the WhatsApp group, can we schedule these classes at these times? If you're comfortable, you'll say yes. Not comfortable, you'll propose modified times, right? Amazingly flexible courses. You have got exams at school this week. I won't be able to do a class, write to us. I've got holidays at this week. Instead of regular 2, give me 4 classes, 5 classes, write to us. We'll do that, right? So no problem at all. We love working with sincere students. We'll go to any extent to help you attain your target scores, right? So typically it is like 2 to 3 classes in a week. The duration of each class is roughly an hour. The tutors usually work from 3 p.m. until 10 p.m. Monday to Saturday, 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. on weekdays, on Sunday, sorry. Some might take a week off on a Monday or a Tuesday. Broad details, the actual course velocity we'll draw for each one of you after we are through with the diagnostic tests, right? So diagnostic tests, if you're out of grade 10, I would still recommend that even if you have not studied sciences, come what might happen, you go ahead and do both diagnostics. There is absolutely no harm done in doing a diagnostic, right? So the diagnostic tests and and initial interaction, which we might do in group of 3-4 students later, is done absolutely free of cost. We never charge for it. Yes, of course, after that, should you want to join a course with us, we'll have to charge a fee, which I'll tell you about. What happened? Okay, I think I'll have to erase this one. So the fee that we charge is 1,50,000 plus taxes. This fee, usually when we train someone for the SAT, it covers only one attempt. For an additional attempt, we charge an additional 50,000 rupees. But just as we extended this privilege to Neeraj Sir students last year, so all Neeraj Sir students, and we've been very, very happy working with all of them. We feel privileged, such good students, such well-behaved students, such well-performing students. So to all the students here on this screen, on the same fee, we'll be able to offer them 2 attempts at either the SAT or the ACT. Right? Again, the scheme of things here onwards is that we'll do the diagnostic tests as per a time and date which is convenient to you. After the diagnostics have been done, we'll schedule a short interaction, maybe in groups of 3-4 people each, where we'll look into each of the cases individually, right? As to what your profile is, what you're doing, what curriculum you are in, what dates we're targeting. So it's an extremely personalized prep. We also do through the course a couple of PTMs, parent-tutor meetings, which a couple of them happen in the students' presence. Of late, we have started doing one for parents in groups without the student. And that is drawing rave reviews. I mean, that's also drawing, a kind of a repeat performance demand from the parents, because that looks at the entire prep and from a very different angle. So they've been very, very successful, and we plan to continue with them. For the ACT, let me also tell you, being a digital test, the digital testing platform that we have, we were the pioneers to launch a digital testing platform for the ACT in India. And today, I can assure you convincingly that our testing platform is the best across Asia. That has given us such phenomenal results last year. 7 perfect ACT scorers, quite a few of them are Neeraj Sir students. You can find out more about us on our website. I'll share it here. Sorry, what's happening to my tablet? It needs a replacement, I guess. Satinpaper.com. That's a takeoff on salt and pepper. That's how we named ourselves. So you can visit us to find out the kind of results that we have got for ourselves. For anything, you may feel free to reach me anytime you wish. I can share my contact number here. Would appreciate if you can send a text message before we can set up a call. So I think that's what I had to say. Anybody has a question, please feel very free to ask.
Thank you very much, sir. Very informative. Obviously, I've heard you present many times, but every time I'm listening and thinking new things, about what it means for the upcoming year. So this has been a very quiet audience. My God, I don't think I've had a quieter audience in recent times. So I'm curious if you guys are asleep or if you're thinking. If you have any questions, I think we've got 8 minutes or so to do some Q&A.
Yeah.
Feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
None from me. We are good. We'll contact for the diagnostic test soon. I think all clear from us.
Yeah. Neeraj sir, are we following a standard practice for the diagnostic test like last time?
I think it will be better, sir.
So somebody from Neeraj sir's office will make a WhatsApp group and loop me, and then we'll continue with that. I think that is going to be a more organized way of doing it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Any questions, please feel free to ask.
When is the earliest we can do the diagnostic?
Tomorrow.
I think we will be interested in an early test. That's all from my side.
Whenever you wish, sir. So my diagnostic test team works 7 days a week. So that's because there are multiple people, of course, they don't work 7 days a week, but I mean, services to the students are given 7 days a week.
Thank you.
I have a question. Would your prep course be always online, or would you start in person?
Always online, ma'am. We have always been online. We were online even when there was no COVID.
Okay.
So We have a 5-year-old experience in working with Zoom as a medium. And
Okay.
that is one of the reasons, that today I permit people with the videos off. Henceforth, I mean, in any of our sessions, whether it's an individual session or a group session, videos on for everyone is a prerequisite. So we don't work without the videos on.
Okay.
It'll always be online. And to me, it is so much more convenient. It is so much more effective.
Okay.
I tell you, a one-on-one online class is 2 times, 3 times as effective as calling a tutor home.
Okay.
Right. And Neeraj sir is a testimony to that. So when given the COVID, he finally had to do online only for a certain period of time. He would always tell me, Abhinav, a meeting that used to last 1 hour lasts about 25 to 30 minutes right now. And the
Okay.
reason for that is simple, because you're face locked with the tutor. You see,
Yes.
if I'm
Right.
teaching you and I look into my WhatsApp message, you'll come to know.
Yeah.
So there is no way the student, and you're like this, absolutely. You cannot look there, you cannot look there. Highly efficient classes, number one. Number two, I do not want my students to travel in a city like Delhi, Bombay, or Bangalore. What's the fun? I mean, traveling 45 minutes one way to do a
Of
class.
course. Yeah.
Third thing, these kids are so busy, they've got so much on their plate.
No, the reason I was asking is this is a paper and pen test, right? For
Yeah.
essay. So then, I mean, they just send you the images of all the.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
See, the initial diagnostic that we do, that is going to be an online test.
Online. All
But
right.
all the mock papers that they take with us are going to be paper and pencil. And it is going to be happening like this here in a group, videos on, audios off, section number 1 over, 65 minutes over, time externally announced. Click a pic and send it to you on your group in the next 25-30 seconds, else you'll be disqualified.
Okay.
So we are good at it. We work with I think we would have worked with almost some 60-70 students from Mumbai last year,
Right.
and with some amazing results.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
I want to add one thing. Working online, I have learned from Abhinav sir.
Okay.
He is the master of this, not just in India, not just in Asia. I worked with organizations around the world in education. SAT and paper is one of the best in the world when it comes to delivering online test prep tutoring. They have been doing it for years. When nobody had heard of Zoom and COVID, they were doing it.
Okay.
So during COVID times, everybody else jumped onto the online bandwagon, including me. But he has been doing it I continuously have conversations with him that how do you solve this problem? How do you address that issue? He's
Right.
got it all figured out. I also want to add that Abhinav sir comes to Bombay from time to time. So it's not like the engagement will be totally virtual. And
Okay.
both of us have worked with students from multiple cities, multiple countries, So, I mean, sir, you're working with how many countries today? 20, 30,
36.
36.
Wow.
36 countries, 55 cities in India.
Yeah. So
And this
just
morning,
imagine.
an inquiry from Myanmar. So that will be 37.
That's amazing. Okay. Right.
So-
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, ma'am. And this is far more effective. I'll tell you what, it doesn't put a strain on the child. For
Yeah.
example, you want to do a class on Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock, Thursday afternoon, 4:30, and Sunday morning, 11. That's possible in my system. That will not be possible anywhere else.
That's true.
You never miss a class. It's a one-on-one class. If the student is not there, the class would not happen. So simple.
Correct. Yeah.
And then I think it's the amount of personalization that we deliver to each student. That is what matters.
Yeah. Sure.
I just glanced in the room. There are students from 4 countries in this room itself.
Oh, lovely. Excellent.
All right. Thank you so much. The session was very interesting. Yeah.
My
Thank
pleasure, ma'am. So, anybody with the question? So I think we are good to sign off now, Neeraj sir.
Last call. Any questions?
No, only comment I wanted to make was my son actually is maybe one step ahead. He actually took the diagnostic test, and post-diagnosis test, I actually got the feedback from you, Abhinav sir, and for the education of everybody else. I'm just saying that the feedback was pretty interesting, and that's when I really saw the value of the tutoring. Right, like it's not just about reading a book and going for the test. The kind of feedback I got from his team was pretty interesting. So.
Super. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, sir, for doing such a detailed session.
You're always, sir. It's always a pleasure
Please,
to work with you.
now all of you get serious about the SAT. Okay. And let's continue having our conversations around testing as all of you wrap up grade 10, move into the summer and early grade 11. And I think immediate next step would be the diagnostic and reflection on whether you are a SAT person or an ACT person. Okay. So thank you for your patience, for your ears, and have a wonderful evening, everybody. Look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.